Georgia is primed for a 2024 run. I think that's fairly safe to say. Um, we're going to talk about why and why not, right? Obviously, but I do want to start by doing the obstacles, right? The obstacles. So we're going to talk about why we will, why we could, why we might not, and then we're going to make our verdict at the end. I'm going to start off with the why we can't. Right? I want to get this part out of the way. In my opinion, when you look at obstacles that Georgia has to face in 2024, I mean, I think to me, it starts with the schedule. I think it's fairly manageable, but if you go and look into the situations and when we play games, could cause some issues, right? Your key matchups, guys, on the road at Tuscaloosa, at DKR, at Ole Miss. Those are three huge games all on the road. Probably your three biggest ones all on the road. That's not easy for anybody. Just going to leave that there for you. So when we take a look at that, obviously week 5, we don't know what Alabama's going to look like. We know they're not going to have Nick Saban. That's for sure. But Kalen DeBoer, we saw what he did last season, albeit with a different personnel, right? Different personnel. But you're looking at a guy that just came out of the national title game. So it's not going to be a cakewalk. I'm going to be realistic. Don't see it being a cakewalk. Tuscaloosa is never really easy. Now, could it be because we're just so used to seeing Nick Saban there? Don't know. Become week 5, we'll find out. But after that, I think another tricky game for me is going in and hosting Auburn, right? You play that game in Tuscaloosa to come right back and host your biggest rival for the Deep South Southern Rivalry. Not saying we lose that game, but how are you going to be prepped for that game if it's an emotional close game for some reason in Tuscaloosa? I think that begs the question. I think Georgia wins that game, but it could be tricky, right? It could be tricky. But then, right, you sit there, you play Mississippi State in Athens, then you get your bye week, right? You get your bye week, go to Texas. I think Texas has the best shot to make it to Atlanta year 1. I think they have a good shot to do it. We'll see. But I think they have a shot to do it year 1. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they did. I think they're set up to go. Let us know in the comments what you think some obstacles are as we go. And I'll read them off, by the way. Also, smash that like button, by the way, too. Helps the show. More ways than one. Now, with that being said, right, you sit there, the schedule is very interesting, right? But if we want to look outside of Georgia's schedule, I think you have to look at, obviously, looking around the scope of the NCAA and college football, the 12-team playoff. There's, obviously in 2024, you do change from that. And as we bring in Mr. Keon himself, Keon, I was just talking about some obstacles that Georgia can face in the quest to go for a national championship in 2024, right? The main topic of the night, we're going to debate both sides of this. Why Georgia can, why Georgia can't. We're going to make our verdict at the end. But I'm going to pause what I was going to say. I want to get what is your biggest obstacle for Georgia getting to the national championship and winning in 24?
I think this year, I think it's going to be, if anything, it would be the defensive line. We still got veterans all over the team, whether it be offense or defense. But I do think since defensive line was a weak point for us last year, I think that would be the biggest reason why we wouldn't go out there and win the Natty this year.
Yeah, definitely to your point there. I think if we go back and look at it, right, we had some older guys that, we felt like this D line play could have been better. Um, Not necessarily the best we know for sure. I mean, I think we get better, but my question to you is how much better do you think we get?
Well, I think there's a level of significance there with that. Um, I think we get a lot better, especially when it came to us going into the portal, reaching out there and grabbing an interior defensive lineman, focusing in when it came to the recruiting class, when it came to getting guys in the trenches that I think are going to come in and help us, especially with, you have Mikhail who's going to be moving to the jack position. I think that's going to help us as well. And we already have guys that have been training, that have been trying to get their bodies right and get the scheme down, whether you want to talk Samuel and Pemba and the boys. So I think, honestly, I think we're going to do pretty well.
I'm looking forward to that, and I want to talk more about that on the other half of this. If we're sticking within the roster, right? I think for me, I'm not saying it's necessarily the biggest obstacle,
Mm.
but finding that true X factor on offense and at the skill positions. Definitely think you in the receiver position more so than anything. I think you got. We're going to talk more about this, but the running back, I think you're in good hands. Just going to leave that there. But when it comes
100%.
when it comes to receiver, though, there's a lot of opportunity there and a lot of bodies to get that opportunity. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But if you don't have a guy that truly comes out and becomes that X factor, it's gonna come back to bite you on these critical downs on the offensive side of the ball if you're not careful. Especially, talking back earlier, Keon, with the schedule, right? Your three hardest games are on the road. You look at Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss, all of them on the road, and you're going to need, that X factor, or you're going to need that guy that comes in clutch, right? If you don't have that, and no one does step up to be that guy, do you see what you see like you saw in the SEC championship? Maybe. I don't want to see that, but it could happen.
No, that's true. That's definitely true.
Root says he thinks that our defense is in good position, right? Improving at linebacker, and offense is going to take the next step forward. I think that's fair too, as well. Um, when it comes to the offensive side, I definitely think, and we're going to talk more about this on the other half side because I feel like there's a lot more fuel for that side of the argument. But I definitely think Rudes is onto something. I'll just say that. Now, at the same time, Keon, we've talked about, like I said, I've talked about the schedule, right? I think the schedule could be a hindrance. Just because another thing that I'm going to add before I move on to this, when you play those kind of games, how does injury play a part into that?
Yeah. I think, especially when it comes to the road of the national championship, especially with the 12-team playoff, man, if I could be all the way honest with you, I think the healthiest team this year is going to end up in the championship. It might not be the best team, um, which is why
It very well could. The deepest
which
team for that matter.
yeah, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot of teams try to add as much as they possibly can to their
Mhm.
roster. So, if they're ever in that situation, they kind of know what they're looking at.
Yeah, I think you're right. I definitely think we go back to the Orange Bowl and the right the fact that we were able to sit there and play second string, third string reserves most of that second half. It's only going to do you good next year because those guys are going to be taking more reps. Those guys are going to be sitting there playing key roles and more snaps. May not even be starting, but you're going to get a rotation, and that's going to matter. And we've seen that happen over the years. right?
Yeah.
Especially since the Sugar Bowl, right? When we had all those opt outs. After that, we've had guys that were bought in and they played football, and you got him. You got early and often, and it seems to pay dividends.
Well, I will say this. I think Kirby Smart has changed the way he went about coaching the guys leading up to the bowl games. Um, really getting people to understand, hey, look, this is our culture. This isn't just, you know, a moment, where everybody here needs to be bought in from get-go. If you're not bought in from the moment that you sign that that NIL, that NLI, or if you're not bought in by what is it, National Signing Day,
Yep.
it's not going to be the place for you.
I think so. I see Wallace Smith saying, "What's going on, guys? What's going on?" And then Rude's obviously
What's
Rude's
happening? What's happening?
Rude's will always make you bark if you're not careful. But anyways, Wallace says he thinks that most of the injuries come during practice, in the way that we practice. Kind of got a point.
I'll be honest with you, and I personally feel this way as a Georgia fan. Um, I would never sacrifice our physicality to keep everybody healthy. I'm not willing to do that because if you
We
because
saw what that looked like in the COVID year. You remember how people were able to practice and then come out and just
Mhm.
couldn't tackle for nothing.
Yeah, like I don't want us to sacrifice our physicality in the name of, keeping everybody healthy. And I know that sounds crazy, but think about it like this. You don't want anybody, whether it be on defense, well, we'll just focus in on defense. You don't want anybody on defense to not have those reps, not have the technique down and fully understood in a game, and end up injuring themselves because of a missed tackle or them not being able to properly wrap up. Uh, I don't want to sacrifice that in any situation. And plus, it helps our offense as well because these guys are getting used to getting hit. That's why, even when it comes to some of our wide receivers or even a running back getting hit with a big hit in a game, what happens? They usually pop back up. So it's just one of those ones. I don't want us to sacrifice our level of physicality for anything at this point,
Yeah, I think Kirby's
especially
gonna.
especially going into a 12-team playoff. No way.
Yeah, I think Roots brings a very good point here. Very good comparison. It says it's like ring rust for a fighter. I get the logic.
I do too. I definitely do too. Yet again, I don't want us to sacrifice anything for our physicality.
No, I'm completely on board with that. Um, other obstacles. Why do I get this feeling that there's going to be that one team outside of the SEC that causes fits? When I look at it, I think a team. I don't know. I don't know if I want to say Oregon more so than maybe Ohio State. Right. The reason why I say that is because one, they've got like Ohio State. We'll stick with Ohio State first. Pretty damn good running back set, good receivers. If the quarterback pans out like they're hoping, could get interesting. And the fact that Ohio State brings back most of their key contributors on defense should not go unnoticed. It just shouldn't because you've got Jack Sawyer, JTT. Now they've lost some folks too. I'm not going to say that they're flawless there, but the key returners, you bring back Travion, you bring in Quinshaw Judkins. That's setting up for a good roster. And obviously Caleb Downs now in Columbus as well. So the defense is going to be straight. The offense has got, again, it's for Ohio State. It's about the quarterback, and if they can get that rolling, again, styles create matchups. Like we saw it right, and we saw it in the playoffs. It can trick you. It can give you everything you got.
No, I definitely agree. I think Ohio State is one of those teams that I would look at outside of the conference, mostly because of everything that they've done this offseason when it came to either bringing back players or getting active in the portal. Um, Another team, and I think the main team for me that I really do think outside of the conference could end up really making some noise. Everybody take a good look at Oregon. I mean, honestly, when you think about the fact that they went out there and they grabbed the quarterback from Oklahoma. You also watched them get Evan Stewart. That's going to help turn their offense up. I think he's going to come in and play more of that Troy Franklin role. So you're going to see him jump out there and jump off the screen very early and quickly. Um, Yet again, the running back room, it has been, I'd like to say, revised in a sense. They're still bringing back, I believe, Terrence Ferguson is coming back as well.
They got, you said running backs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jordan James.
Yeah. So
I think another thing too, Lanning. That was only his second year as a head coach.
yeah, like
The fact that not only do they have what they're doing there, they've recruited, right. We've seen what they've done in the portal, right, getting Jabbar Muhammad and all these other guys too. But that 24 class is nasty too.
100%.
Saw earlier today that they're trending for Gatlin Bear. That kid's a 10-1 runner in the 100. That is insane.
Out of Iowa, I think. No, Idaho.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Idaho. This kid, I mean,
he can fly.
I mean,
He can fly.
I'm looking at like I would compare him to a Lab McConkey, if anything, but faster. Definitely going to be jumping off the charts here soon. Then they also had Aylin Breland as well.
That sucks we didn't get him in that class, man.
I mean, we can't get too mad about it, honestly, because
we did. We still want to be, man. We want it all. That's just what it is.
I mean, but when I look at it though, I think if we would have been able to add Breland, we probably would have had the craziest D-line class like ever.
It'd be stupid. It'd be insane. It'd be insane. But yeah, I think when it comes to, I look at the Big Ten, right? I think I don't necessarily feel confident in saying that Michigan's going to stay where they are.
I don't think they are.
It wouldn't surprise me to see Ohio State and Oregon. However, I'm curious to see what happens to Penn State. Penn State has to capitalize, right? Penn State has to capitalize on Michigan losing Harbaugh to project themselves up into that rightful spot. Because if they can assert themselves in the top 3 like they should, that's going to get them into the playoffs. And I feel like, for what it's worth, they can play good defense. Now, they lose Manny Diaz, but we'll see what happens with it. But Loki had a really good defense last year. They just get caught up in Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah, I think with Oregon coming over there and USC and all of them, I think Oregon is honestly going to be one of the top teams, if not the top team in the conference. So that's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. But if you told me to give you 2 that I think are going to be the best out of that conference, it's definitely going to be Oregon and Ohio State.
I think both of those could create an interesting matchup and a dynamic for Georgia if we were to play them in the playoffs. Definitely Ohio State. When it comes to teams outside the Big Ten, right, ACC, Big 12, are there any teams that kind of just remotely stick out to you and make you wonder if there should be any concern for who could slide into the playoffs and cause some chaos?
You talking about in conference?
No. I mean, I don't think that's – I mean, we can talk to SEC all day. I was looking more so like – all right, we talked about the Big Ten. But like conferences like ACC or the Big 12, are there any teams in those that kind of stick out to you as maybe like, hey, this would be interesting to see, and it might cause Georgia some fits potentially?
No. We smacking anything out of the Big 12. We smacking anything out of the ACC. They gave us their champion, and we put 60 on them. There's like, if we want to create a dialogue for the sake of creating a dialogue, like I could say Colorado because they got Deion Sanders. But if we're being honest with ourselves, we're better than everything the ACC and the Big 12 has to offer.
Oh, we'll definitely find out week 1 when we play Clemson, right? I mean, that's probably going to be and for what it's worth, we're playing Georgia Tech to end the season, so we start off and finish with the ACC. In between that, though, I don't know how to. This team always gets hyped up, and then during the season, it just shows that they're not what they're expected to be, and that's Miami. They get Cam Ward, right?
Let's not waste any of our viewers' time talking about a team that lost to Georgia Tech. Can't forget that. Dog shit till proven otherwise. Sorry.
Low key think Georgia Tech's going to be sneaky good this year, though. Maybe not as good to beat us, but I do think they'll be low key good in the ACC.
You know who I think might actually surprise people, and this is going to sound crazy, in the ACC? Virginia Tech. I just have the strangest. I can't even quantify it. That's the thing. I just feel like they're going to win 2 more games than what everybody suspected. They're going to knock off one team in the ACC that no one suspected. It could be a Clemson. It could be a Duke. It could be a North Carolina. Could be Miami. I don't know. I just feel like I don't know why. I just have a feeling that they are close to doing something. Maybe not making the playoffs, but I feel like they're gonna be a fringe team. And I know that sounds crazy because their record last year was awful, but
they got somebody that actually gives a shit about the DMV area and wants to fix the relationships that Fuente did not do. Because Fuente tore all that up. But no, I'll tell you another team. I know you mentioned them. Just because they lose Mike Elko doesn't mean that Duke can't be a threat in the ACC. People don't forget they got Malik Murphy from Texas. So we'll see what that looks like, right? Manny Diaz, not a terrible head coach, but it's also the ACC, so there's a good chance.
Wait, Manny Diaz is the head coach at Duke?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-mm. Y'all not beating Carolina in any sport this year, it look like, because the damn sure ain't finna be basketball.
I need you to chill out with that. Next Saturday, by the way.
Yeah.
With that being, or actually this Saturday, sorry.
Yeah.
No, but if the teams from the ACC or the Big 12, I'm not wasting my time on the Big 12. I'm really not. The Big 12 left and went to the SEC.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't see an issue with anybody in the ACC, like you said. I think there would be some interesting matchups that could come out of it because somebody from the ACC's got to go into the playoffs. Don't see a group of 5 team causing any kind of threat. I don't see that much as an obstacle. I think our obstacle lies up north in the Big 10, and out west, if you will. But I think in regards to non-Georgia related, I think outside the SEC, again.